Okay, you're going to see two videos. I don't want to update that much, but when I turn my phone around, the function stops. I'm going to upload, by the time you see this, you'll see another video. I'll try to catch it on this. I'm trying to explain that this is the only online video of the bank robber. And as soon as I seen it, I realized that that video was the same person, but very unclear. Not the one that not the picture they had online of the bank robber. This was the one that they had online, let's see, of the bank robber yesterday. This is in the Caller Times. That was a very clear picture they had. That was the same picture online yesterday. Today's only online picture was a less clear picture. That's the beauty of having print copy along with, you see, you could, if for whatever reason you wanted to give a different picture that was less clear, you're able to do it. It would be difficult to take all that down, but that's the story online. And that's not the same picture they had yesterday. It's the same person, mind you. But for whatever reason, they took a different section of the video. That's a picture of the video that the bank caught. I find that interesting. I find that interesting because it's quite clear for anybody to see. That picture of the bank robber is clear. That's yesterday's Corpus Christi paper. Today, the only online image of the bank robber is less clear, nor is it the same clear image they had online yesterday. Whether that's the cop or not, I don't know. If they were going to do something of that nature, meaning they don't want people to know, I would just, being I got it on, I'm going to probably upload the first one and then this one, because I made one trying to show it with the camera turned the other way and it shut off. But it's interesting because regardless of, I would not know why a media that's showing a picture to the public would take down the very clear one that was on yesterday online on local media. The only picture today is an unclear one with the head down. They had the other one, so I saw it online. And I just noticed, I was going to comment again, but I noticed now they have a different one. You know, just, I am sure about the other stuff I spoke about. How do all the cases I talked about over the last few years, one of the other things that the public is not aware of, but a lot of people are aware of, is sometimes what law enforcement does, and I've talked about this over the last 10 years, what they deem is if an officer commits a crime, even if it's a severe crime, they deem the disciplinary procedures as an employer to an employee, meaning you either retire, we give you the option to retire, you resign, or you're going to get fired. They often deem that as the penalty, meaning if you had child porn or you molested a child, okay, you move on. We've had a couple of cases where people moved to this region, got hired at departments that had past histories in other police departments. And then even some of the local media began to investigate that the past few years and said, well, if this officer committed some severe crimes and then he got fired, I think it was in California, why was there no accountability for the crimes? I'm not sure what they were, but they were felonies. And then he got hired later. And some of the media, contacted whatever department he was with in the past, another case. They basically said, well, when he got fired, it was no longer being investigated because he was no longer with our department. But those were crimes. Some were felonies. Meaning, if you were investigating an officer anywhere USA of a serious felony, whatever it is, sexual assault of a child, and then you said, but he left. He left the department, therefore that was sort of his discipline. No, that's incorrect. And they do that all across this country, for those who are not familiar with it. I posted those two pictures on Facebook, okay? I took the pictures of the ones I just showed you on this little update, last update for the day. And that's something the public's not aware of, that it's dealt with in-house like that. The thing I can tell you for sure, whether that is an officer or not, I don't know. The other things I do know. They had a, I'll give you another case before I close this, about this city. It was maybe 5 years ago now. There was an officer who was accused of having sex with a young girl that was in school. Okay. The way they found out that the CCPD cop was having sex with a young girl in school was she contracted, I think it was a sexually transmitted disease. But she went to the hospital. At the hospital, they asked her about certain things, and she said, an older officer with the Corpus Christi Police Department has sex with me. This was a girl in school. When the Spawn Health System, the hospital system, got attention of it, then it had to bring in like other agencies to look at that. Now this man, I know his name, I won't repeat the name because I'm familiar with the case. Well, it was Mick Chester, okay? So he's lying. This was an officer by the name of Mick Chester who worked for CCPD. Okay, the case got some attention and he had to go before federal court. Now initially he denied everything. Initially he said it wasn't true. And later he admitted it was true. Okay. So, John, they got him. What's wrong with that? Besides the crime itself, what was wrong was during the investigation there was another officer. As far as I know, he stayed with the department because there was another officer had knowledge of this offense, which is a felony, and lied to cover up for his friend, who was a CCPD officer by the name of Mick Chester. And when it came out that he kind of lied and said, oh no, he wasn't here, or he kind of made an alibi during the investigation. In the civilian world, that other officer should have at least been fired. He had a very small discipline, I forgot, a day without pay or something. As far as I know, that other cop who was basically covering up for a CCPD officer having sex with a young girl that was in the school, and he was security at that school. If you're in a civilian society and you molest a child or continue sexual assault of a child, and then you have another person that had knowledge of that. We had people sent up, a husband and a wife, or a man and a woman, for both having knowledge of certain sexual exploitation of children. And out of this region, of course, they were sent up for many years. Both. But the thing that disturbed me, you say, John, they caught it. How many others at the department, including the supervisors, knew about this? And we know one covered up for Mick Chester because that came out. I read the report on that a few years ago. Okay, so this will be the last update. I made it the first video. I don't know if I'll upload the first video that I made on these pictures because I had the phone turned around. But I want you to understand very clearly. This was the picture online yesterday, which is very clear. I mean, that's the one where I could almost recognize he looks like a cop I know. That was also what the one was online yesterday. The one online today was face down, and if you're looking at my computer, very blurry. And that's the only online image. Why? Even if that's not the cop, I told you enough today about the other instances that should warrant some federal authorities looking at this city. And being I have it on, you say you're throwing things around. I'll re-mention some of the other ones. This is your wonderful, blessed day, everybody. I have a friend of mine who was an Iraqi war vet, and he lives within a mile of here, maybe less. And I did Bible studies at like a little ministry that him and his wife invited me. I see her. I'll have to give the name again. I've given it before. And he told me, and this is not just one case. I heard this so many times, so many years here. But it was like a joke because they laugh about it. But his name is Jesse. And the Bible studies was 918 West Lakeside. I've given that address. They know these people. 918 West Lakeside. But it's in Flower Bluff. The properties are owned by a CCPD officer by the name of Tommy Nichols. Everybody knows that. It's not a surprise. Nichols Apartments, Nichols Properties. Okay. But the guys used to complain over the years about abuse. And see, this is one that all you'd have to ever do is investigate. I gave these names before, and I know they really don't want to get involved. But the wife, by the name of Angel, a sweet girl, manages those apartments on West Lakeside for the cop, Tommy Nichols, CCPD. Very long history out here, Tommy Nichols. And Jesse laughed about it. He told the story more than once. And then I spoke on it. And maybe they got upset. But Jesse said how one time Tommy in the CCPD car kind of hit him with the car. Now this has happened before. Not run him over, but bumped him and Jesse fell down. Jesse had alcohol problems, I guess, in the past. Maybe he still does. I like Jesse. But he said that the officer just pulled out a bag of Xanax or whatever. This has happened so many times. And said, look what I found on you. Okay, this has happened multiple times, all throughout the history of this place. So Jesse, as a veteran, Iraq war veteran, but he had a court-appointed attorney, and he told her, this happens. Of course, they don't listen to it. So Jesse, I think, did 2 years on that. But here's the proof of that. Because as he recounted this, he's told it multiple times. I'm sure he doesn't tell it no more. Because they don't want to be retaliated against. But he said, eventually, he became friends with the officer because they manage the apartments that he owns here in Flower Bluff. He owns real estate. And one day, my friend Jesse, still residing, as far as I know, at 918 West Lakeside, Corpus Christi, Texas, 78418, said to the cop, "Do you remember me?" And the cop said, "No." And he said, "You planted that Xanax on me, and I did 2 years in prison." And according to Jesse, the officer's response was, "Sorry about that." That's not the first time. And that's why it was repeated multiple times. It was like they couldn't believe it. And that was not told to me like to report. It was told like, can you believe it? And people got used to the way CCPD operates. And I told the story about my other friend. I gave his name multiple times. See, they all know this. They stopped him. They all know this. This is not a surprise to them. It's a surprise to you, the public. He was stopped one night at the Stripes right here on Flower Bluff Drive. I gave his name multiple times. They all know the name. But he didn't have drugs on him. And it got the officer mad. The same cop. The same cop. And it got him mad. Later that evening, the officer, according to my friend, but he told the story, changed into plainclothes. These stories have been relayed to me so many times over the years. And then jumped him at the Stripes. Beat him up to the point where he was put in the hospital. They later found out it was this officer. And whoever was in charge of this officer at that time, the supervisor at that time, and I always wondered if it was Chief Markle, who was not chief then, but it was somebody that was a supervisor over the officer who committed that felony assault. It was a retaliation because he was mad that he didn't find drugs on my friend. And they showed up and told him, we promise he will never lay a hand on you again. That's how they dealt with those things. And that officer rose the ranks. But this is what disturbed me. Because that friend of mine, who you've seen on a lot of my videos, when he first told me this story a few years, I flipped. I got so mad. But the same officer then showed up in the cop car after the assault and after the assurance that we promise he will never lay a hand on you again. And he parked in a house in Turtle Cove in the cop car, in the driveway. And my friend was staying with friends that had a house here. Now this was after he was assaulted, felony assault. And then when my friend went outside, and there were kids in that home that were going to go to school and all, the cop said, hey, we caught the guy who beat the shit out of you. We sent him to Port Aransas. That cop, after that criminal act, put him on notice. We run this place, and there's an element of us that are criminals, and we are not unstoppable. And this is not the only instance of the many years. I heard these so many times, and I gave the names of everybody before, and they just laugh. They watch the videos. Of course we kicked his ass, or planted the Xanax on Jesse at 918 West Lakeside. Of course we do that. Of course we do that. To them it's like, yes, we do it. Everybody knows we do it. We manipulate. So I figured being I turned it back on, I'll do it. None of this is new that I just spoke on. This will be the last video. I do want to wish everybody a good Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'll do the regular. I could have put the videos up tonight. The normal ones I upload every night. We got some new video sites. Those of you that watch see me post all that. Some of those other sites work out pretty well. I get more views, just different ones. So it's kind of, I could have put a bunch up tonight, but being I posted all that already. All right, so I do want to bless you guys. Have a good Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to post the teaching tomorrow, the continuing 2 Samuel. We'll finish that. We'll do something different. All right, just check online, those of you that are familiar. The pictures I wanted you to look at was the only video, a picture of the video was a much less clear one with the head down. And even when I looked at it, so you know John's not paranoid, I knew, I said, wait a minute, they had a clearer video, a picture yesterday. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had that Corpus Christi Kohler, you would have never been able to believe that, yes, indeed. I had a very clear picture yesterday where I could recognize him. That picture, it almost looks like a different person because I recognized him from that first shot. Okay? It's Corpus Christi.